I think people want mental health crisis response now more than ever.
Vanessa Nordyke says she's continuing to work with Marion County to advocate for a mobile response unit. This would allow people to call 911 for a specific mental health case.
This is a person who may be expressing suicidal thoughts. Maybe it's a person who looks lost and confused wandering down the street. These are for non-criminal calls.
The city councilor says Salem is hoping for matching grant funding through House Bill 2417. That would allow Marion County to allocate funding from the state to these units.
I plan on talking with my city councilors and my mayor about next steps. You know, roadblocks happen in government. That's just a fact of life. So this is about building relationships and having open lines of communication.
Not all city council members agree the response unit is the biggest priority. Chris Hoy says after communication with agencies like United Way, he's worried there would not be anywhere to transport victims after these calls.
They either go to the hospital or they go to jail. And that's not a great option for most folks. They don't need to be in the hospital and certainly don't need to be in jail for most of the issues that we're talking about here, whether it's a mental health crisis or some sort of crisis as a result of their addiction.
Hoy says there are other tools at the moment, including outreach teams through law enforcement.
Would you say that a mobile response unit like CAHOOTS is still on the table at this point and being worked towards, or do you not see it being on the table at this time?
I would say it's absolutely on the table. I don't believe it's being worked on at this time, but it's absolutely still on the table. I believe everybody is committed to having non-law enforcement resources available to help address the needs of people who are experiencing homelessness. I think that commitment is 100% still there. I've not heard anybody say that commitment has gone away.
I asked the council where the funding could go instead as they move forward. They tell us more about some of the solutions that they're considering coming up tonight at 6.
For a state like Oregon, nestled into the moisture-laden Pacific Northwest, rain should not be a rare sighting, but it has been. According to the latest check of the U.S. Drought Monitor, more than 70% of Oregon is under extreme drought.
It takes a while for us to get into drought, and it'll take a while for us to get out of drought.
Larry O'Neill is the state climatologist for Oregon.
What do we need to be able to get out of this hole that we dug ourselves into in terms of that drought?
We're running some pretty big precipitation deficits, and that's manifesting itself in a couple ways. One is that our reservoirs are much lower than normal. Some reservoirs in the state, such as Wickiup and Prineville, are nearly empty.
O'Neill says it usually takes 1 or 2 full wet seasons to recover from drought. But this is the worst drought on record.
The impacts tend to come earlier in the spring and summer, and they tend to be more severe. So this was the second year of the drought in Oregon, and we had a lot more of the adverse impacts earlier in the year, and they were more severe than normal.
He says we'll need healthy rainfall to recuperate and build solid snowpack in the mountains.
It stores water in the wintertime when we don't really need as much, and it stores it into the spring and summer when we do need it, and it slowly melts it off into the streams, into the reservoirs and things like that.
O'Neill says more snow events come with rain, which causes fast melting, and that's concerning.
What are the prolonged consequences that we're looking at here?
Essentially what will happen is we'll enter into next year in these same sort of drought conditions, and kind of the impacts that we experienced this year, we can anticipate that we'll expect next year. And some of the biggest impacts came with agriculture and irrigation water availability.
Because of the 2-year drought, we have taken a lot of water out of local wells.
So we could see that a lot of the streams and rivers in Oregon are much lower than normal, which is kind of reflecting the lack of groundwater that we have.
He says what we need is to recharge those systems, which requires 6 to 12 months of either average or above average precipitation.
Yeah, right. It will all take place along Lombard Street, right in the heart of the business district. PBOT will remove buried rail lines here, as well as make pavement repairs, expand curbs, and mark crosswalks. While construction is happening, business owners say they are concerned about customers avoiding the area during what's supposed to be the busiest time of year. PBOT says this project is decades in the making, working to address streetcar rail lines covered by pavement almost 100 years ago, now making the road bumpy and inconvenient. The construction spans from St. Louis to Richmond Avenues and is set to wrap up in late 2022. The Bureau of Transportation is shutting down construction during the holiday shopping season between late November and January. I told PBOT about the concerns I heard from business owners. They told me there is never a good time for major construction projects.
How would you respond to the businesses that are voicing concerns about access and potentially driving customers away while this work is going on?
Well, we completely understand that construction is always a pain. No matter where it is not something that's pleasant to live through. And that's sort of the unfortunate consequence of making improvements.
PBOT staff say if curb ramps are not complete by November, they will put in temporary asphalt to help people get through the area. But there could be challenges for customers, like blocked off parking or lane changes. Long term, PBOT is hopeful this will ultimately improve access and driving conditions for those visiting St. John's. Some business owners I spoke with are looking forward to the changes, while others are concerned about staying afloat during this time. We'll have more on their perspectives coming up tonight after the game.
An order from Portland Police Chief Chuck Lavelle.
Those who have participated in street racing must stop.
The call to stop scenes like this from playing out in Portland neighborhoods and bridges comes 1 month after the Portland City Council passed an emergency ordinance. The ordinance allows for stricter punishments to be handed down to violators and gives officers more tools to respond. But when we spoke with officers about the emergency ordinance last month,
at the end of the day, if there isn't enough staff to go after these calls, does the ordinance kind of fall flat?
Well, it's always multifaceted. So a good law is a great start. Having the staff to back it up is another important piece of it. And that's something that, of course, in Portland, we're really hoping to add to the equation.
Now Chief Lavelle says PPB will have help responding to scenes like this.
We have joined with our law enforcement partners to combat and stop this illegal activity.
It's a step forward for concerned neighbors who police say have been calling on them to respond. But whether it will be enough will be determined the next time a scene like this plays out. But Chief Lavelle is hoping their response won't be necessary.
It is dangerous and costly to our community. The time to respect each other is now.